My name is Yolanda. I'm sitting in my new condo, looking at the signed agreement on the wall, which changed my life. Just a few months ago, I was in a high-stakes showdown with my family over the sale of our family home. The closing day had arrived. I walked into the real estate office with my lawyer, Mr. Harris. The room was filled with my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, my sister Chloe, the buyers, and their lawyer. My mother was dressed in a fancy suit, trying to look confident, but I could see a hint of unease in her eyes. My father, always the quiet one, was fidgeting with his tie. Chloe was there, looking put together but with a nervous air about her. As soon as we entered, my mother's smile froze. "Yolanda, what are you doing here with a lawyer?" she asked, her voice laced with shock. I took a deep breath and said evenly, "I'm here to claim what's mine, Mom. This is my lawyer, Mr. Harris." Mr. Harris then stepped forward and presented the agreement. In 2013, Yolanda contributed $200,000 to the family home. In return, she was promised 40% of the home's value upon its sale. "Here is the signed agreement." My mother scoffed. "That was just a family thing. It doesn't count." But my father, looking at the document, his face went pale. "I remember this. I typed it up. We promised her." My mother shot him a furious look. "Richard, be quiet. This is ridiculous. Yolanda, you're being selfish." I held my ground. "I'm not being selfish. I'm taking back what was rightfully promised to me. You sold the house for $1.8 million and my share is $720,000. Chloe started to cry. "Yolanda, how can you do this to me? I just got divorced and have nothing." I felt a pang in my heart, but I knew I couldn't back down. "Chloe, I've helped you and this family for years. This is my investment, not a charity." The buyers were getting restless. Their lawyer said, "We can't proceed with this unresolved ownership dispute." My mother's composure finally cracked. "You're ruining everything, Yolanda. You're tearing this family apart." I looked at her and said, "You're the ones who tried to take my money. I've kept quiet for too long." After a tense stand-off, the real estate agent announced that the sale was frozen until the dispute was resolved. To understand how I got here, I need to take you back to my younger days. I grew up in a small town in Vermont. My parents were middle class. My father worked at a local factory and my mother was a part-time librarian. I was always the responsible one, while my sister Chloe was the free spirit. She changed majors multiple times in college and dropped out once before finally getting a degree in art history, which she never really used. When I was 22, I graduated summa cum laude in finance. I got a job at a well-known accounting firm right away. I was determined to make something of myself. Meanwhile, Chloe got married young to a guy named Tom, who worked in a coffee shop. They had 2 kids, Lily and Max. My grandmother, Mrs. Evelyn Green, was my rock. She was a strong-willed woman who ran a small flower shop for decades. She loved me deeply because I was the one who visited her every weekend. We'd sit in her garden, talk about life, and she'd tell me stories about her youth. Chloe, on the other hand, would visit maybe once a year. When Grandma Evelyn passed away in 2013, her will stated that she was leaving me $200,000. My mother was furious. "You must have influenced her," she said at the funeral. "She always loved Chloe more." But I knew Grandma loved me for my loyalty and hard work. 2 months after I received the inheritance, my mother came to me with a great opportunity. The family home, which they bought in 1998, still had a mortgage. She said if I contributed $200,000 to pay off the mortgage and make some renovations, I'd own 40% of the home's value when it was sold. I was hesitant. $200,000 was my entire savings. But my mother said, "Yolanda, this is an investment. Real estate always goes up and you'll be helping the family." My father added, "It's what your grandmother would have wanted." I called my best friend, Sarah, that night. She said, "At least get it in writing." So I asked my parents and they laughed at first. But then my father typed up an agreement on his old computer. It stated that I was contributing $200,000 for a 40% share of the home's future value. Both my parents signed it on July 20th, 2013. I kept the original in a safety deposit box. Over the years, I worked hard at my job. I got promoted multiple times and became a senior financial analyst. Meanwhile, Chloe's life was full of ups and downs. Her marriage started to fall apart, and she was constantly in financial trouble. Every time she had a problem, like a car breakdown or a medical bill, my parents would call me. Yolanda, can you help Chloe just this once? And I always did. I lost track of how much money I gave to the family over the years. It was probably around $35,000 in additional help for things like home repairs and property taxes. By the time I was 34, I owned only my car and a small retirement account, and I'd given my family almost $250,000. In 2025, Chloe's marriage finally ended. Tom left her for another woman, and he kept the house they bought. She moved back in with my parents. Suddenly, all the family discussions were about how to help Chloe start over. Then, in September 2025, my mother called to tell me they were selling the house. We found a buyer for $1. $8 million, she said, her voice excited. I did the math immediately. 40% of $1. $8 million was $720,000. But then she dropped the bombshell. We've decided to give all the money to Chloe. She needs it more. I was stunned. Mom, what about my share? The $200,000 I put in? My mother's tone turned cold. That was your contribution to the family, Yolanda. You have a good job and a life. Chloe has nothing. I argued, but we had an agreement. She laughed. That was just family paperwork. No one will hold you to that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about all the times I'd helped my family and how they were now trying to take away what was mine. I called Sarah and she said, "You need a lawyer. You have a valid agreement." So, I made an appointment with Mr. Harris, a real estate attorney. He reviewed the agreement and the bank transfer records and said, "Under Vermont law, this agreement is binding. You're entitled to your share." As the closing date approached, my mother tried to guilt-trip me. She called and said, "Yolanda, you're ruining the family. Chloe needs this money to start a new life." I almost wavered, but then I thought about all the years of being taken advantage of. I decided to stand my ground. After the sale was frozen, the pressure on my parents increased. The buyers gave them an ultimatum: resolve the dispute in 7 days, or they'd withdraw their offer and demand their earnest money back. My mother hired her own lawyer, but he quickly advised her that fighting my claim would be a losing battle. She started calling all our relatives, trying to turn them against me, saying I was being greedy. But I sent a group email with the agreement and the bank records explaining the situation. Many of my relatives, including my aunt and uncle, believed me. My father finally reached out to me.
"Yolanda, I'm sorry.
I should have stood up for you. I'll make sure you get your money." In the end, we reached a settlement. My parents agreed to transfer $720,000 to me from the sale proceeds. I also made them acknowledge in front of the lawyers that the money was mine and the agreement was valid. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. My relationship with my family has changed. My mother and I still have a strained relationship, but she's stopped asking me for money. My father is trying to make amends, and Chloe has started to take responsibility for her own life. She got a part-time job and is working towards being independent. I used some of the money to create a scholarship fund in Grandma Evelyn's name to help young women in finance. It feels good to pay forward the support she gave me. I've also bought this condo, a place that's truly mine. And I've started seeing a therapist to work through the years of people-pleasing and boundary-less living. This whole experience has taught me that I deserve to be treated fairly, and I don't have to sacrifice my own well-being for the sake of others. I finally chose myself, and it was the best decision I've ever made.